Welcome to Carpool Conversations, where our goal is to help equip parents to have Christ-centered, meaningful conversations with their kids. I'm Amy Lowe.
And I am Sara Jones, and today we're going to be talking about living out your family values.
Sara, living out your family values is one thing. Having them on the wall is another. And I think so often we have them on the wall. I have them on my wall. You have them on your wall. But it's easy for them just to sit there and for us to look at them and think they're a pretty decoration, but not do anything with them. And today we're going to be talking about, okay, what are your family values and how do you live them out in the day-to-day? How do you make them stick? How do you keep them as a topic of conversation? And I'm so glad that we don't have to do this alone today, but we have another mom here with us. Angela Fielder is here with us. Angela is a dear friend of us and WinShape Camps, and we'll unpack her story in a little bit. But one of the neat things about her is like she lives this out in her life. She lives out this idea of coming up with her family values and living them out. And it comes from generations. So she'll tell us about that in a minute. But Angela, we're so glad you're here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here as well.
Yeah, really excited to have her share. For those listening, I think that you're going to be blessed by Angela's thoughtfulness around the topic. But just a little information about Angela. Angela is a member of the Cathy family, third generation. She was born in Brazil while her parents were serving on the mission field. So are you fluent Portuguese?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get to use it as much as I have before. But,
yes.
I still speak it a little bit.
I love that. So you went to Union University and you are married to Brent and you have 4 kids. So double the amount I have. You have 4.
To us together.
Amy and I added up, we equal the amount of kids Angela does. So
I've had double the experience as us.
Yeah, so she has more wisdom to share because she has real life examples. So, Angela, what is something fun that you are enjoying in this stage of parenting?
It's been a lot of fun, actually. We're in a new season. We have a teenager. I'll talk later about the family, but a 13-year-old is our oldest. But the sports season, we just wrapped up the fall sports kind of things. And so just being able to go and watch and cheer them on and be excited for them, and also just their learnings of life, even in a lost game or a lost a bad time on a run or something like that. So it's just been fun to watch them grow in their sports. So.
Yeah. So your oldest is 13 and your youngest is
7. Yeah.
Okay.
They can all take care of themselves. No diapers, nothing like that. We're done with that.
You would think, but there's still something that you have to remind them about. Brush your teeth. Yes, you do have to take a shower tonight because you stink.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Oh yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. So you also have a close connection to camp, which Amy sort of mentioned, but you were a camper. You met your husband at camp, you worked camp, and now you send your kids to camp. So
yes. Yeah. So I was a camper for 9 years when I was the youngest age, I think. The girls' camp overnight was still at the Ford buildings at Mount Berry, or at Berry College, the Ford buildings there, and we would ride the blue buses out to Mount Campus and do all of our skills and stuff out there. So it feels ancient now, which probably is, but even then, back then it was Camp WinShape, and now it's changed names. So it was fun. It was grew up going there every summer with my siblings, and it's just something we grew up doing. It was a lot of fun. Then, like you said, I started working camp when I was a summer staff in 2004, and throughout college, did everything I could with camp. We worked family camps when we had them in the fall, and all of the things. I did meet my husband working camp. He was there on staff at boys camp, and he went on to work 6 years full time for WinShape. So it runs in the blood, not just the family, but also just us and our now family. And now all the kids have gone to camp. And this past summer, our youngest, like you said, Landon, went to camp as well. So
that was the first year they all went.
Yes.
At the same time.
It was the first year. And I
did
remember,
y'all go on vacation?
So we took the first part for like work trip, and then the second part was just be at home.
Okay.
Yes. So it was good. But I remember thinking as a staffer, a summer staffer, I was like, man, like these parents just get to go on vacation and just hang out. And now I finally I've arrived,
Yes.
I like,
here.
I'm the one that gets to go on vacation, but it's like, this is really strange that I'm leaving my kids with these staffers. But
Yes.
it's been great. We trust them and we encourage other families, like, hey, send them to camp. It's good for them. They come back so much more mature in some ways. They can fix their own plate and brush their own teeth and things like that. So it's been really fun for our family and a fun place to be, for them to be. And they look forward to going there in the summertime. So
Yeah.
I feel that.
I love to see when parents drop off the kids that have been there, not first time parents, because first time the parents start dropping off, we're a little nervous and sometimes there's tears, but for the ones that it's their second or third time, I just love watching the parents. They're so happy to drop them off and then they're so happy to leave. And I'm like, good for you. Go, spend time together as a married couple and be together and have fun and do something.
And to see them so well rested when they come and pick them up. I'm like, you were glowing. You just got some really good sleep for 2 weeks.
that's right. Yeah,
That's right.
That's good.
Okay, Angela. A couple of months ago, we did a podcast on family values, and we actually used your mom's book as a guide to help us think through it because she lives this out. And so we really talked about how do you do that? How do you go about that? That's kind of a big task with like all of these different things that could be your values, and how do you whittle them down and work on them together as a family, and do they change over time and all of that kind of stuff. And so that was really part one for this. So if you're sitting here listening thinking, Amy, I don't even have my family values yet, well, maybe pause this episode and go back to the other one, listen, and then you can come back to this one, because this one's really about, I have my family values. We've talked about them. We figured them out. Maybe they're on the wall. Maybe they're not, but we know what they are. And now we want to live them out, and we want to keep them on the forefront, and we want to remind our kids of them. And I think, sometimes we feel like a broken record and that we're saying the same things and getting the eye rolls and all of that kind of stuff. But what we're here today is just to encourage moms and dads listening that you can keep this in front of your kids. And this is going to be a very practical episode.
Yes.
To do that. So let's start with, tell us what your family values are and how did you land on those?
Yeah, real quick, if they hadn't watched the episode, I would encourage you to. I went back and listened to it, and it was really good. But just to kind of make sure that we're the same terminology, values is just kind of define for yourself what's important for your life and how you should live your life. And I think sometimes it can help provide guardrails for where we are, what we say yes, what we say no to, because we're focused on what's important in our life. And I think whether you have them written down or not, you actually are living them out. And whether you know it or not, and maybe that's a little scary.
Yes.
Am I really living out what I want to be living out? And sometimes I think maybe you challenge yourself to identify them, and you don't know where to start. But maybe ask those that are around you, maybe your kids, maybe friends or whatever, but what seems to be important to me? And sometimes that can kind of help you know what is important. And I think another thing about values is that they are passed down. I think we all know the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And sometimes I actually see my kids and I'm like, oh no, they actually got that from me. But my grandparents, as y'all mentioned, were incredible examples to me. They lived out their values, even though I don't ever think I saw them written down, but you knew what was important to them by the way they lived their life. Their faith was something super important. They both were very involved in church. They both led Sunday school classes. Granddad was very involved with WinShape Camps when he would come up and speak on Sundays. It's just really important that faith was passed to the next generation. I also think of their life of being consistent. He was the same, no matter if he was at the corporate headquarters at Chick-fil-A or at the kitchen table in their dining room, or even up at camp around campers. He lived that same consistent life. And now I get to see that in my parents too. My parents are super intentional and purposeful of their time and the things that they choose to spend time on. And I think about 20 years ago, my parents decided, hey, what if we spent a weekend together without kids, and come up without grandkids for them, but come up here with your spouse and just have some time together, just to pray together. We talk about family business. And one of those weekends, we actually talked about values.
That's so great.
This was about probably 15-ish years ago. Brent and I have been married for 16. So it was a little bit right before we had kids. And we talked about what is important to us. What are these family values? And we had a chance to just kind of sit down and identify what are those family values for us. And Brent and I took that weekend, and Mom and Dad had given us a deck of cards. So we went through the words and things like that. And you can find all those kinds of lists online and things. But we went through and really identified them for what do we want our family to stand for? What do we want our kids to know that's important to us as a Fielder family? So our family values, to answer your question, long way to get there. But our 5 are faith, living out our faith in all that we do and our belief in God, compassion, seeing the world the way that God sees it, generosity, everything that we have belongs to God, humility, how do we put others before ourselves, authentic community, live in intentional relationship with others. So those are our 5. We kind of whittled it down, but kind of try to use those in different ways around our life. So
yeah, that's good. That's a good reminder. I need a retreat, just my husband and I.
Yeah.
No kids.
No kids.
So from a big picture, how do we actually, what's the action step? Like big picture, how do we pass those values down? Because what I'm hearing, these are some of the things that you saw your grandparents and then your parents and then now you are doing. So what a beautiful picture of legacy.
Yeah.
But what's the action step to pass those down to our kids?
Yeah, I wish I could say Brent and I are perfect parents, but we're not. And so I wish we could have said, hey, we had this huge plan. He's a business mind, a business plan of how we're going to instill this into our kids. But we didn't really have that. And it was almost like as we've looked back and seen the things that we've done and where we've been intentional and kind of realized, even asking our kids, oh, wow, they actually are catching on to some of the things. So there's this magic formula to say for you that are listening, like, don't feel overwhelmed by like, oh man, there's no way I can do this, or I've already messed up. It's great. Like we all mess up. Yeah. So ask for forgiveness and let's move forward and figure out what do you want to be important in your life. And so I think that's kind of been what we've done and a few practical things. One is we've actually written them down. We've written them down and they're actually in our kitchen, right by our kitchen table. It's a place where we sit. We try to sit often for dinner and other meals, but it's a place we can kind of look at and refer to. But it's something about writing them down. It makes them maybe more permanent in a sense of like, hey, this is my reminder. I think often in scripture, we've seen a lot of things of writing things down to remember, to look at. You think, I'm actually reading through Exodus right now. So the 10 Commandments, God wrote them down for us to remember them. And so I think that's important to be something that we write down. The second thing, talk about them with our kids. And it doesn't have to be this long lecture with the kids, but it's like, how can we, what are practical ways that we see this? Humility. How can we serve others before ourselves? Like, I'm going to go through the line because I'm super hungry, so I'm going to fix my plate first. Well, how can you help your younger sibling, and show humility by helping him fix his plate because he can't quite reach the counter? Different things like that. So making these big words that maybe seem big, but practical to kids in whatever age that you have. I think about date nights, authentic community. I think about spending time with our kids. We do have 4 kids. It's hard to get individual time with them, but it's important and they love it. They love having date night with mom and dad. And we try to do 1 kid per month so it doesn't affect our date times, but try to get some time with them. And just really, want to spend time and get to know them more, but also have a time even to talk about these values and spend time doing those. And then I think the last thing, like we've already mentioned, is to live them out. Mom often says things are often caught, not taught.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, maybe that's a scary thought for you of like, oh my goodness, how am I living my life? But it's a good challenge as well of like, am I spending my life in an intentional way? And I think it's to make sure that we're careful in how we're living these out. And I think one thing that sticks out about my grandfather, like I mentioned, his consistency. I saw it lived out in his life. It wasn't something he had to talk about, but I did catch, like you said, these values, these principles that were important to him in his life, or my grandparents or my parents, just seeing them live it out. And it wasn't like something that we had to like have this long lecture conversation about. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah, those are kind of a few that we've seen used, or that we've used kind of along the way.
Yeah, write it down.
Yep. I heard somebody say one time, leaders are repeaters.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. I feel like so often we can feel like a broken record of like, I have to say again, like, this is who we are as a family and what we value. But I think, they're hearing so much from everywhere that we might feel like we're repeating it 100 times, but they don't catch it all the time. And so just keep doing it. I also remembered the cards that you mentioned. I did this activity with my husband. I think we had even already figured out our family values, but we were kind of thinking personally for our own values. And that was even fun to do for us together, because the values that I picked out on my cards, and I would show them him. He's like, yeah, like that's 100% you. And then he did his cards, and I was like, I am learning so much about you from the cards. Like, one of his cards was fun. And one of his values is fun. And I was like, that is not one of my values, but I can see how it's one of his values. And so even just that alone has helped me to like see him a little bit better and think he wants to have fun. And that's an important thing. And I'm so glad that he does, but I wouldn't have known that if we had not done that activity. So that's even something that fun you can do with your spouse to think through, like, how do we just see the world differently? Because in this case, we're coming together. It's our family values together, but you also have your own passions and your own pursuits. So, okay, Angela, you told us you're 5. What I would love to do is just kind of walk through each of them practically and help us to like unpack them a little bit. And I know that the folks listening might be thinking, Amy, these are not my family values, so this isn't going to help me. But I really think it will, because anytime I hear practical examples from anybody in this regard, it helps me think through my own. So it might not be exactly your values, but I think the activity will help you think through and unpack your own. So,
and also copy and paste these. If you don't already have any, Angela's kids are great kids. And so
start with these.
Yeah. Copy hers. I'm just saying, if you don't have them yet.
Okay, so let's walk through them. So faith is the first one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So faith, I think of faith as the foundation. F and F kind of goes together for the Fielder family. And
love that.
Some little things there. But one of the things we do is just have a family worship night together on Sunday nights. Sunday seems to be the night that we're kind of all home. No activities are really happening. Helps us get us started on our week. Well, we go through... we have a kid just pick a Bible verse to read, or one kid lead a song, or we find a YouTube video with motions, or WinShape Camps songs as well.
We're here to help.
Worship songs. Yeah. So just listen to a song. We do a verse. We ask each other how we can pray for each other. Talk through our week so the kids kind of know what to expect, what's happening, who's traveling, who's in and out. And just kind of a good way to just start our week and focusing on our faith. Again, it's like, it's nothing big, it's nothing long. It's just a real quick check-in and kind of go from there. And we're not perfect. We don't get it every Sunday. Sometimes it has to be on a Monday night or maybe a Saturday, knowing what's coming up. But that just helps us get our week started well.
I love that, because it doesn't seem like it takes an enormous amount of preparation on your part. Again, I think I have to come up with a Devo, and I have to come up with 5 points, and they all have to start with F and things like that. But you don't have to. And I love that the kids get involved and let them play a part in it too, which is probably way more meaningful for them to bring a verse or to read or to lead the family in something. I think that's
you're cultivating leadership skills in them.
Yeah, there's so many resources out there. You know, we use like a YouVersion or something like that. Just a quick like, hey, here's a verse of the day. Yep. Sometimes it even comes with a little video.
Yes.
And so it's just real practical and easy. Like I said, sometimes it can be stressful. When we first started, it was like, oh my goodness, we got to make sure we do this. But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So
an offering to the Lord. Yeah, a sanctuary of time every Sunday.
That's right.
Okay, compassion. So seeing the world the way that God sees it. You know, our family has had the opportunity, because I did grow up in Brazil. Traveling international is something we've always wanted to do and loved to do with our family. So we've had several opportunities to be able to go and see God's work in other countries. I think that makes it so practical to be able to see the world the way that God sees it. And be able to have compassion for other people, but also know people of God's love for other people around the world. But it doesn't have to be around the world. We did get to go to Africa this summer. It was a lot of fun. The kids got to see things that they don't get to see at home, like real hunger, like there really is no food in the kitchen, or having to find your own food or going to get your own water somewhere. Those kinds of things that I think sometimes we forget being in our culture and being where God has placed us. But I don't think we can deny that. But we can it can allow us to open our eyes to other things. Even with that, I think about not just overseas, but even here at home. How can we teach our kids compassion? When I think about them sitting in a cafeteria at school, can we talk about like the buddy that's like sitting there by himself or something like that, and helping your kids even see, hey, how can I even reach out, even in my school, of people maybe that don't feel included or maybe have compassion on them because God loves them. I should love them too.
That's good.
So I think that's all around the world, but even at home, I think there's places and things to find and see the way the world, see the world the way that God sees it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it just sounds like capturing those moments and not letting them pass you by, to be able to bring that up with your kids about the cafeteria friend. Yeah. You know, I think that makes a big difference.
And tell me about generosity.
So generosity, kind of our catch line with that is just everything we have belongs to God. Kind of how can we live our life with open hands? And I think that it gets harder and harder in today's world to do that with our kids and Christmas time coming up and wanting things. And it's like, okay, how can we flip this to what can you give? Like, what can we give versus what are the things that we want? One of the things we've done with our kids is an allowance, and we haven't ever had a good system for this, a good chart or all that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to come up with, or that I can stick to, that doesn't get so legalistic of like, and anyway, but our kind of method is an allowance by their age. So each week they get paid whatever their age is.
So like $13 for your 13-year-old.
Yeah. Okay. But he does have to do a few things. Okay. So just get it just because. So there, a few things of, sometimes it's like things you have to do around the house. We live on a farm. We have chickens. We have to go get the eggs or feeding the dog, making up the bed, like picking up their clothes, all these things. There are things they have to do, but they can do extra things and earn extra money as well. So that's kind of our allowance system. But then we pay them on Saturday, and then we give them a chance to like say, okay, well, what am I going to give to the church? We believe in giving a tithe to the church. And so, okay, how we do that with math? a lot of people don't have a lot of cash these days, or cash, actual physical cash. Yeah. Our kids do have a green light card, the boys do. Yeah. And they can give through that and all that kind of stuff. So, but teaching them to be generous with even that money that they're making, and how can we give back to the church? I think our first thought is always money and the possessions we have, but also think about our time too. How can we be generous with our time? And one of the things our boys have loved doing, they serve in the nursery at church. And it's a huge commitment. They've got to be there on Sundays. They're there for, get there early for church. And a lot of kids, their peers aren't necessarily serving with little babies or toddlers. But it's actually come to be something that they love to do.
Yeah.
And I think of that as generosity because it is their time. They could be sleeping in. Yeah. Or coming just to the second service or things like that. Granted, they have to come to church when we bring them. But I do think of that as time, and even in our time, and being generous with how we spend our time and in ways that we can give back, not just with money, but also time. So find ways for your kids to serve, whether it's, places or this November, December, Thanksgiving holiday time, there's lots of ways to serve at a food banks or things like that. You can get your kids involved and just giving back to the community that you're in.
Yeah, so that's good.
And then the fourth one is humility.
Yes.
That's probably hard to make tangible sometimes.
It is, but I think it kind of goes to compassion too, of like, how can you help a friend? How can you put others before yourself? In thinking of siblings or, I've got to run upstairs and get something. And then another kid says, hey, you need it. Can you get this for me? And like, no, I'm not getting this for you.
Yes.
Was that nice? Like, is it kind? No, not really. So I think about it in that way of like, how can we put others and serving others before us?
Yeah.
And lots of, ways at school or holding the door open for somebody when they're walking in the door. I think some of it's just general courtesiness. Courtesiness, if that's a word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's
they go together.
Ways to go together. Yeah.
And I've actually seen that your last one played out is your authentic community. Y'all vacation together. You are doing life with a really great community of people. Like you're raising kids together. You're like y'all go camping. You go on a beach trip. Like y'all do a ton of fun things.
We do. Yeah. So it's actually birthed from WinShape, honestly. It's a group of summer staffers that we had together, what we call the Party Planning Committee, now known as PPC for short, but just a group of friends that like really do life together with. And you think about it as a small group for church or something like that. But we all worked camp, and it's kind of just been one of those friendships that have stayed together since then. And it is just how can we live our lives, being real with each other, bringing our problems to each other. I think that's good for our kids to see as well, because we don't have to be a different person at home when we're with our family than when we are with our friends or at a church group or function, whatever it is. Like that we can be real no matter where we are.
Yeah.
So it makes it not confusing for kids to know, mom and dad act this way at home, but they act this way around their friends.
Yeah.
But how can we be real?
And then they'll produce that as well when they're older. They'll the PPC, isn't that what you call it?
PPC.
PPC.
Yeah.
Okay. Party Planning Committee. I love that. Do y'all have t-shirts? Did you make t-shirts?
There are some trips that we actually do create a t-shirt or a sweatshirt for.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, that is so awesome. Angela, this has been so good for my own soul to hear and encouraging. I think I can't wait to go home and just get the conversation started with my own kids and my husband and how we could actually play like this out on a day-to-day. And so we end our time with a question always. And so I could not think of one. I had to think of two. So maybe one is a little better if you have younger kids at home, and then one could be better if you have older kids. And so the question of the day that we are going to end our time with is, what do you think is most important to our family and why? And then the other question, my second one, is how have you seen our family grow this year? And where do you think we still need to grow? So I hope and pray that this has been encouraging for you and that these questions are helpful as you present them to your kids and your family, and that you can be encouraged. Thanks, Angela, for coming and being with us today. It has been a joy and an honor to learn and hear from you today. We'll see you next time.